I'm here to talk about my play Last Queen of Scotland, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the research that led me to write that play. It's about Idi-Amin, and obviously this was one of the first books that I read about him. And he kicked me out of Uganda in 1972, and basically he ordered the expulsion of all Ugandan Asians out of Uganda in a 90-day deadline. But he also took all the possessions, from minor things like photographs. This is my gran. No, it's not my gran. I was just saying that because all Indian people know each other. I find that funny. Right? No, it's my mum. It's not. So people left, and then they arrived at Stansted Airport, and they were basically helped, with lots of clothes because it was so cold. This is my grandfather, and he left Gujarat, Porbandar, same village as where Gandhi's from, and went to Uganda, mainly because there were so many job opportunities, and there was a huge link with Uganda and India because of the British colony. So there was a movement there. This is a critical sort of piece of paper, if you think about it. It changed everybody's lives. What you had in your passport if you were a British protected citizen. So 40 years after the expulsion, there was a lot of talks that went on all around the country, and I attended the Exodus Symposium in London, and I met a lot of people, prominent Ugandan Asians there, who were talking about life since the expulsion. And one of the people I met is Giles Gordon there, who wrote The Last King of Scotland, so that was quite a privilege to meet him. Yasmin Brown, who's a well-known writer. I spoke to Giles about a play, and he was so supportive, and he was like, yeah, totally. Get Idi-Amin and put him in Dundee, ken the streets of the Stobie and that. And I was like, yeah. Another critical thing about the play was going to Uganda. So I went there, and I was looking for my dad's old shop, and trying to find the businesses that he owned, and it was quite difficult. I went to the National Theatre in Kampala, and I got a lot of support from them. I did some readings of the early drafts of the play, and there was directors there, writers there, and I don't think they understood my accent, but they really did support a lot of the writing. Mira Nair, who's a famous film director based in America, and her husband, Mahood, wrote From Citizen to Refugee, and he's a professor and was also expelled at the same time as me, so it was great to speak to them about their experiences of the expulsion. Here is a Rolex, which it's like a rolled up chapati and egg, and it's just getting an idea of what people were eating and the street food, and they kind of eat that at night time, the same as we have kebabs and stuff, so basically after they've had a bevy. And this is Makerere University, where I interviewed Mahood, and I spoke to him about the play, and he was really, really inspirational to me, because he talked about putting the refugee crisis in a different context. And going from Uganda to here, this is where we went. So there's a big difference in the climate, everything. So I was always comparing the differences between, Kampala, Uganda, Jinja, and then Dundee, Fintry, Whitfield. So this is sort of what I started to learn about when I came to Dundee. A little bit about the street, the language, and that's kind of what really made me fall in love with Scotland, was the dialect, and the toddy, and the Huns, and the fleet. And that's a huge part of the play, is keeping that character of Dundee and the impressions that it had on me as a big part of the character of the story. And here's another scene, which was basically the way Dundee looked when we arrived. in the 70s. And again, that kind of just made me compare what life could have been like if we'd stayed in Africa. This is one of our houses in Ginger, and I think this is one of the houses that my dad rented out. So it took us a long, long time to find it because so much had changed in the streets and the people, but I felt really proud of myself to actually get to that point and actually see the house, and you know, it was a good feeling. One of the first places we arrived when we came to Britain was an old army barracks which housed a lot of the refugees, and this one was in Westmall in Kent. So there was a Ugandan resettlement board that was set up to manage the 30,000 refugees that arrived in Britain, and this was the H block. So a lot of the refugees stayed there, and we kind of stayed just up from there, but where we were staying was knocked down, and there was like brand new houses and everything built up on the place where we lived. This is a shot from the National Theatre in Uganda, and I just read my poem out, and I saw this guy, and it just, to me, it was that feeling that I started to get a little bit of light on a history that had been so dark to me. And so I just, you know, I quite liked that feeling. So Last Queen of Scotland's on at Dundee Rep and Edinburgh Fringe this summer, and basically, if I could say something Idi-Amin, I'd be like, Last King of Scotland, what do you know about Scotland? Wearing a kilt doesn't make you Scottish. We are 90 wives, some say more. Father, the load of kids he's ignored. Thank you.